everyone, welcome, or I say welcome back, welcome to the first instalment of What's It Like to Study X series here on the Live, Laugh, Nerd, Repeat channel. I'm here with two guests, one from EIE, which stands for Electrical and Information Engineering, and one for Physics. If you two want to introduce yourselves to the audience.
Hi guys, I'm Inaaya and I study Physics at Imperial.
And I'm Zara and I study EIE at Imperial.
Okay, if you two want to tell us more about your course.
Okay, well, Physics is different from A-level. I mean, I'm hoping you all know what Physics is, but it's different from A-level. It's more advanced. There's a lot more maths involved, I would say. So about what I do is 75% maths. You do things like vectors, electromagnetism, and then oscillations and waves, mechanics, relativity, just as a little taster as to what you might be studying.
So for EIE, that's actually part of the EIE department, which is Electrical and Electronic Engineering. And so it is still to do with electronics, but it tends to be more towards the software side. So your first year, you do your first year with the EIE students, and we have modules such as just straight maths. You learn programming in first year at C++, and then you have modules that teach you about circuit design and then computer architecture.
Nice. Very physicsy degrees. Oh, very, very impressive. What does a typical day look like for both of you?
So for Physics, we tend to have 2 to 3 lectures per day. So that can depend on the timetable. And then throughout the week, we'll have one seminar per week, and it alternates between the two kind of modules we're studying. So for example, first term, it would alternate between mechanics and oscillations and waves. And then we also have a 3-hour with an additional 4th hour lab once per week. So we essentially have these things called lab cycles. So we'll do a different lab each week, and then at the end of the lab cycle, we'll then have to write a lab report. So, but that's just like kind of the schedule time. So then we also have office hours. So I want to say that at least like 3 or 4 hours per week. It could be more or less depending on like how many modules we're studying at the time. But then, because you're technically expected to be working like a 9 to 5, so you're expected to put about 40 hours per week into your subject.
Okay.
For EIE, you can have anywhere between sort of 2 to 4 hours of lectures, usually in the morning, and then that'll be followed by usually like afternoon problem classes. So you work through problem sheets and get to talk directly to the lecturers for any help. We also have labs, so we'll usually have 2 days in a week of labs, which are 2 hours long, and they're every week rather than like a cycle. It's just sort of one lab that you continue to do throughout the entire term, and it's consolidating on the modules that you're learning in lectures. And then we also have tutorial sessions every other week.
Would you say you guys prefer labs over lectures, or do you not mind either one?
I mean, for me, my lab is it's just once a week, so I think that's quite nice, because it's like it's nice to have something different compared to just sitting in a lecture hall and listening to someone speak. It's nice to be doing something practical. I still think I still prefer lectures, because labs can be 3 hours is a lot, but then again, you are allowed to take breaks whenever you want. I think actually doing the lab is fun, but then writing the lab reports can be not so fun. It's better now, but I think learning at the beginning is a lot, especially because we're kind of like thrown into like writing, not thrown into, but we're thrown into a lot of things. Like we're doing, learning to code for the first time. We're learning how to be like good writers, like academic writers, using like LaTeX, which is the lab report software. So I think it's nice. It's a nice, good change, but it can be a bit overwhelming at first, but that's fine.
How about you, Zara?
Yeah, so I think it's a bit of an unpopular opinion, but I do prefer labs, I think. I know it's a bit of a split in the course because they can feel quite long, and when you're like building circuits and stuff, it's very easy to mess up somewhere when you've got wires all over the place, trying to find where the wrong connection is or what's not connected to power or anything can be really long and get really frustrating. But once you get into it, it's cool to sort of apply what you're learning in lectures and like see it actually work out in physical application.
Yeah, I do like that here we do get opportunity to build both our theoretical knowledge within lectures and then work on the more practical side during labs. I feel like uni in general is a lot of kind of learning on the job, getting your hands dirty and throwing yourself into it. So linking onto that, What would you say your workload has been like for the year? So there's this number of assessments, group work, projects, stuff like that.
So for us, I would say, I think about once a month we would have an assessed problem sheet. So that's about 2 hours worth of maybe 2 or 3 questions worth, about 15 marks in total. And there are 2 of those for like whatever modules we're studying at the time. So the first term was mechanics, relativity, and also oscillations and waves. I think in the first term the workload was quite a bit. Again, also probably felt a bit more because we were adjusting. And on top of that, we had like 2 lab reports with the lab cycles and for assessments, and that was worth some credit. But then again, the first one wasn't worth any credit because it was an intro session. But I think those were the only form. We also had a kind of a computing model as part of like our practical physics module. So that had like some small assessments, but I wouldn't say it was too many. Like it felt definitely manageable. And we also had some 2 January exams. But again, it was just the 2 exams, and then I guess now, like May end of year exams, we had 2 or 3 if you did a certain module. So in terms of assessments, I'd say they're not that often, but they're still there to keep you kind of engaged with the content, and so you don't fall too behind. So I'd say it's pretty good. It's not as overwhelming as I thought it would be, especially because the difference between uni and sort of A-level is that A-level at least is just an exams at the end of the 2 years, so you can kind of not do whatever, but you're kind of more free to make lots more mistakes. Of course, you can still make lots of mistakes like in first year in uni because it's worth so little, and also the whole thing about uni is like learning on the go. But at the same time, it's not to the point where I've been so stressed about like the fact I'm always kind of being assessed.
So I'd say we have quite a lot of contact hours. And so even when maybe there's not too many assignments, it can feel quite a lot in terms of if you're trying to still do a decent amount of work by yourself outside of those contact hours, then it starts to feel maybe like a lot. But in terms of what actually gets assigned, we don't have too many assignments. You get problem sheets, but those aren't assessed or even really checked. They're there for your own learning, for you to keep along. So I'd still recommend doing them, but it's not necessarily a burden in terms of deadlines or anything. The main thing is, so with the tutorial sessions that we have once every 2 weeks, you'll have problems you need to work through for those. And then one thing that I think is quite specific to our department is that we have pretty much just a lot of assessments throughout the entire year. I think we had like every single month. But it's there. Those ones that we have that aren't like the big finals, so we have like midterms, they're not worth a lot. And so what you find is you can mess up 1 or 2 of them as you're working things out, and it won't add up to be too much. And then we do have the standard January exams. We had 2 of our finals then, and then we had 4 finals for the May exams. In between that, we've had numerous different assessments, but I think it's a good way to make sure you're staying on top of the work and not learning things for the first time, just running up into like the big exams.
Yeah, sorry. As Zara was speaking, I was also reminded we do get problem sheets, the non-assessed problem sheets, and those are also they don't check if you've done them, but it does help to keep on top of them because you don't want to be learning new content the day before the exam or doing all the problem sheets. Also, because they do use some of the questions from the problem sheets or the ideas, so it would be great. But then the physics department in particular uses a great system called Lambda feedback, which they developed. So they have like structured tutorials and work solutions, and the point is you're meant to struggle with them, so it is definitely worth doing them. But I think people can get maybe a bit pressured by that, but again, it's up to you when you do them. It's just probably it is best to do it as it comes, but it's also up to your discretion as well, so it's not something to be stressed about.
Yeah, I will say Imperial does admittedly have that bit of a reputation that the workload is quite intense, and I do think, of course, we do get a lot of problem sheets, we do have labs, but the idea is meant to help your learning, and it's usually, I can at least say this for computing, and from the sounds of it, you guys as departments as well, it's not like immediately like you need to hand it in like the next day. You will have time to work through it, you will have time to ask questions about it, and you should use these as opportunities to challenge yourself. and push yourself to understand the content and grow your knowledge. Because that's why we're at uni. At the end of the day, we are hopefully studying the subject that we're interested in, and we want to learn more about it. So linking onto that, what would you say is not maybe a main reason or one of the reasons why you chose to do your degree?
Well, physics at Imperial has got quite a good reputation, so that was one of the main reasons I chose it. Also, from a kind of practical point of view, is I'm also someone who lives in London. So again, I quite enjoy London, so I knew picking a London uni would probably be a good option for me, and I really enjoy the city of London. So yeah, I think that's one of the two main things.
Similar to Inaaya, I think obviously Imperial has a good reputation, but that reputation is not there for no reason, right? You have access to a lot of good resources and things like that, right? So even just choosing whatever your degree is, choosing to do it at Imperial felt like a right choice. And I like the idea of studying in London. It's obviously a fun city to be in. There's a lot to do outside of uni life, and there's the other London unis that you get to connect with. So that was also part of it. And in terms of the actual degree, I think it stood out because while a lot of unis offer just straight electrical engineering, Imperial allows you to just sort of split off between the electrical side and then more the electronics and software side, which is more where my interests lie. So that was quite unique to Imperial versus other courses offered at other unis.
Linking back to what you were saying, Zara, what else have you guys gotten up to at university? Were there any clubs, societies that you got involved in? If not necessarily, is there a reason why you haven't had the chance to engage with them? And then what do you just like about the facilities here?
So I think that is one really, really good thing about Imperial. There's just, because you're surrounded by so many driven people who are all starting all these different societies and everything, you have so many opportunities to get involved in whatever you're interested in. And so for me, where I felt like maybe I was lacking experience on the practical side of my degree, where others maybe had more, I've been able to develop the skills just outside of my degree, doing clubs like prosthetics or proto-soc, which allow you to get involved in different projects and activities, hackathons that allow you to sort of build those skills. And so those have all been really fun. And then outside of those ones where I'm trying to enhance my skills for my degree, there's just like sports. So I've been part of netball this year and been doing like calisthenics, which has been quite fun. Also gospel choir, that's really good community. And I think there's just so many opportunities to meet different people in like different areas of uni. And so I definitely have a lot of friends outside of my course, which I love. And general facilities. I love the fact that we just have like permanent access to like the robotics lab in the EEE building. If you want to get started on your own self-driven projects, you have access to like 3D printers, different components that you need, and as well as that, you also have the hack space in White City, which gives you access to even more advanced materials depending on what you're doing. So I love all of that.
How about you, Inaaya?
So as a physics undergraduate, I'm automatically part of physics society. So I've been enjoying, like they organise a lot of sort of researchers to come in, talks, also collaborations with other unis, and again trips to like Faraday Museum. So, and also especially like being at South Kent, like right next to Natural History Museum, sometimes they have that sort of things going on. But then they also know how to relax. They had like the physics has the Christmas dinner back in December, and that was really, really good, really heavily subsidized, which is great for us students. And also they have like a boat party coming up. So it's been great to be involved with sort of my department society events as well, because again, getting closer to like my course mates and also kind of sharing our love for physics outside of lectures. And then also at the beginning, I did a lot more of like the K-pop society, so I actually did a bit with our host Iriday, and it's been fun attending those like dance sessions. Admittedly, I haven't been going as frequently, but again, it's nice to be involved, you know, to share like a common passion. So yeah, that's something great about Imperial. So you can always find a club that aligns with you, and if you can't, you can just start it, which I know some of my friends have been doing as well. So even as first years. So yeah, there's a lot to explore, there's a lot to, you know, loads of societies you can try out. So definitely recommend joining them as a way to make friends.
Yeah, and I think that's just good general advice for university. You get the most out of it when you're willing to throw yourself into new situations, meet new people. And again, this might sound like a bit of a plug-in for Imperial, but there are genuinely so many different societies that you can get yourselves involved in. So I would recommend doing that. Well, regardless of whatever university you go to, just make sure to put yourself out there and reach out to people. So what would you both say has been like a highlight or favourite moment from this year?
So one of the highlights has definitely been, so this is part of Gospel Choir, we did the Christmas showcase, and that was like just an incredible event, being able to sing with such a large group of sort of like-minded people, being able to perform. I tend to be quite shy on stage, but that sort of just all goes away in that case, and it just felt really fun to be like part of such a really large community. And then we got to sort of do the same thing in the Easter term, but that was a collaboration with other London unis like UCL and LSE as well, so even bigger group, and it was just really nice to share in that. Yeah.
So I'll mention two highlights. I'll first mention a bit of a nerdy highlight. So the first, okay, admittedly again, I don't attend office hours as much as I'd like to, but one of these days I did attend office hour for our complex analysis module. So that's all kind of things like complex, like Euler's theorem, de Morgan's theorem, that sort of thing. And our like lecturer was going through the problem on the board, and she was going through it, and I thought to myself, wow, like this actually like makes sense, and also like the way another lecturer, he applied like something we were learning from a different module, and he approached the question a different way, and I thought, wow, that is so smart, and I actually understand what he's doing. I thought, especially like I have to say I was feeling quite a bit like, wow, I don't know if I think a lot of people have like imposter syndrome. I was thinking, I don't know if I'm smart enough for this course, I don't know if I can really keep up. But then I was there and I was like, you know what, even if sometimes like I feel like I can't keep up, I think this is the reason why I picked physics as well, is because I love this sort of joy of learning new things and understanding new concepts. So yeah, that was great. And then another highlight was we have this the NATSC department is called the RCSU, so Royal College of Science Union, and they had a jazz night event back in sort of November, October. So I think, yeah, that was a good highlight. Nice vibes. Obviously, jazz, you can never go wrong. So yeah, that night was pretty good.
Nice. It sounds like you both, especially your giggle at the beginning, Zara, sounds like you guys had a very enjoyable moments throughout the year, which is good. It's not all studying. We promise university is more than just studying. So if you guys feel comfortable enough to share, what's been a low moment for you? And what lessons did you take away from it? We can skip this question as well.
No, I'm happy to answer. Okay, I'll start with. I think low moment was honestly kind of first term, just getting to grips with being at uni by myself. And I wasn't someone who struggled so much with missing my family. It's more like sort of the actual comfort I had of being at home. Of course I did miss them, but again, fresh as flu, getting sick twice, that was rough. Guys, getting sick by yourself makes you realize like how thankful I was for my family. Like, I didn't have my mom to take care of me. Like, that was quite a rough moment as well, because you still gotta cook, you gotta take care of yourself. So that was kind of a low, but also again, like, I know I obviously used to washing dishes before, but then again, washing dishes after like every meal. I know this might sound a bit like kind of easy for some people, and it is, but I think on top of that and doing loads of things, it just felt kind of overwhelming for me as well at the time. So having like all these new kind of quote unquote adult responsibilities was difficult. But I think it's just something you persevere through, whether that's like maybe reaching out to like wellbeing services or even your friends, it's something you can definitely get through, and I think I'm so glad I went through it and that I lived out first year, is because I think it's such an important experience to have like well into your adult life. So a low, but I learned so much from it, so I wouldn't change it.
I'd say for me, I guess I could sort of pinpoint two. I think definitely first term, as Inaaya said, was quite overwhelming in terms of just getting settled into like everything uni had to offer, both the academics and just being an adult now. And I think one thing that made that especially hard, as sort of was mentioned earlier, you start to maybe suffer a little bit of imposter syndrome as you start to meet other people in your course and outside of it, and you hear people talking about maybe experiences they've already had, or talking about concepts that you've never heard of, and you start questioning, oh, am I really, good enough to be here? Am I going to be able to keep up with the course? Oh, people here are so much better than me, and it can start to feel overwhelming. But that, I feel like, is just a very natural place to be in when you start, and it definitely has lessened throughout the year. And I think then on the flip side of that, as I started to be more confident and throw myself into all these sort of extracurricular projects that I was working on, like technical projects, I found that at one point maybe I took on too much, and doing all of that on top of doing uni and my actual degree work and studying and for exams, it felt like so much at one point. And once you let yourself start to slip a little bit, feels like you just keep slipping, and it gets to a point where you're like, oh, can I even bring this back? But I'm here now and I'm okay. So it's definitely emotions rather than necessarily any sort of actual crises, but those have been maybe some of the rough moments.
Yeah, I think imposter syndrome here is quite a big one, because especially I think this kind of pairs into the stuff you hear about Imperial before you get here. I think everyone, well, not everyone, I think a lot of people kind of go into the mindset of, oh, like, I need to be the best of the best 24/7, 365. I need to keep up with my peers all the time. So there are moments, like, especially if you don't understand what your lecturer's going on about, that you might feel, oh, why am I here? Like, why is the workload so much? But there is that community aspect to it. You can reach out to other people and just have those open, honest conversations about how you're feeling. And remember, one dark day doesn't mean the sun can't shine for the rest of the year. I think it's very important to acknowledge how you're feeling in those situations, but also know that this isn't forever. There will always be light at the end of the tunnel. So, kind of linking onto those words of wisdom, is there any advice you would give to students looking to do your degree or study at Imperial here?
I think if you've chosen something and you're worried that you're not going to be good at it, but you have passion and interest for it, then trust yourself and go for it. Because I had this thing with physics where, like, I was like a year ago, I'm never going to do physics. I hate it because I didn't understand it. And then I was at A level, I was like, should I do it? Okay, I'll do it. Like, let me see. It's like, should I do it? But I was like, I'm not going to do it as a degree though. Like, no. And then I was like doing, going through, I was like, actually, like, I think this is like the one I like, I want to do as a degree. And then I was like, can I do it as a degree? But then now having picked it, and having gone through it, and then I guess kind of seeing what math students go through, having done kind of math like module, because I was picking between physics and maths, I thought to myself, like, oh, I'm so glad I chose physics. But also, especially, like, I know women in STEM, like, you might hear it a lot. I don't know if people ever get sick of it, but genuinely, it is a thing. There aren't enough women when there definitely should be, and we're like more than capable of doing it. And especially in pure physics, I didn't expect as much the amount of support I would get as a kind of being a woman. They have women in physics events, they actively make it so that you're surrounded by women as well. Like your tutorial, my academic tutor, like she was a woman. She's always like kind of champagning for like us, like showing up, not like, oh, you guys show up to lectures, like actually like the fact that we're putting ourselves through this degree, which can be a bit intimidating because it is quite male dominated, but especially Imperial physics is like 25% women. So I think, kind of gone off the topic, but I would say, trust your gut, and also, especially if you're a woman, you're thinking to study something STEM, whether that's Imperial or elsewhere, have faith in yourself, and don't let anyone undermine sort of what you can do.
How about you, Zara?
Yeah, first of all, I'd like to just double down on what was just said. Definitely do not be put off by different ratios. In the end, it's your academic journey, and the number of the other gender in your course isn't going to determine how well you do at the end of the day. It's the work you put in, so I wouldn't be put off by that. But in general, I would say throw yourself into everything you want to do, especially in first year. I did mention before that at one point it felt a lot, but I don't regret doing that. I feel like this has been such a formative year. I've picked up so many new skills that if the me a year ago looked at me now, I'd be like, whoa, she knows some things, right? So that's both academic and then also just other skills, right, that you learn from being in different societies and different communities. So I would definitely try and get involved in as many things. And like, there's a lot of things I signed up to in freshers that I'm not necessarily doing now, but it was still fun to maybe even do that one taster session and then narrow it down to the things that I wanted to do. But I'm really glad I've just been involved in so many different aspects of uni life, and it's allowed me to keep the people that I associate with very, very broad, and meet a lot of different people, not just in first year, but across different years as well, that I would not have met otherwise. Yeah.
Nice. I think it's always better to do things scared than to not do them at all. It is, like we've been saying throughout this entire episode, it's really important to put yourself out there. I think we can all agree that's the main advice. Don't let fear deter you from doing things. Is there anything else you want to say to the audience before we round up the episode?
I think wherever you go to uni, again, if that's Imperial, I think one of the most important things is, of course, you're going there to get a degree at the end of the day, but also, as kind of cheesy it sounds, it is a bit about like finding yourself and finding kind of new parts about you that's not just about academics, and finding other hobbies and activities, because something you kind of quickly learn at uni is you can't depend on yourself, you can't depend on academics, especially if you're in the sense that like you can't let that be your whole life, especially if you're someone who's a bit obsessed with being, for example, number one or being kind of the top. Especially if you go to a very kind of selective and prestigious and academic uni, you're not necessarily going to be the top, and that's okay. But what's important is to be kind of a well-rounded person, to have other interests and hobbies, because the most interesting thing about you is not you know how like smart you are, or like whether you're the top person in the year. It's about like sort of you as a person and what your passions and interests are.
I guess maybe something that has sort of been talked about but not fully covered is that obviously also just trying to make friends at the start of freshers can be quite overwhelming. There's so many people you will meet in freshers, and you're always sort of questioning, is this the person that's gonna be like the person I'm around all the time, or is this just another like small talk? You find yourself having the same conversations over and over again. What's your name? What's your course? Where are you from? Why did you choose Imperial? And you're like, okay, I know these are going to become deep connections. But I would genuinely say, like, just keep doing them. As mundane as it seems, when you have that conversation with someone that you are actually going to click with, it's not going to feel mundane. It's going to quickly transition into a genuine conversation that you enjoy having. And also don't be afraid to like have friends that are very casual friends that you see around uni and you smile at and you talk to, because it's good to have those sorts of people. You have a lot of connections, you feel less alone because you're seeing a lot of people you know around campus. So yeah, I think people maybe value those less, and while it's important to have deep connections, it's also fine to have those people that you just say hello to whenever you see them. And I would also say, like, don't be worried about your like flat if you're living in like uni or com. Sometimes you might not get on with them, sometimes maybe they don't interact or engage with you too much, but you will meet so many other people, and you find you're not in your flat that much because you'll be at campus, you'll be hopefully involved in other things, right? You might study in the library, you might study at your friend's room or kitchen, so that doesn't have to define your uni experience, who you end up having to live with for either. Yeah.
These lovely pieces of advice from both of you. Thank you so much for joining and helping out. I hope you guys keep listening to future episodes. If you have any degrees that you really want to hear from, just let me know. I can try and find people. I can try. I do have friends at other unis who do more arts and humanities stuff, so I might try reaching out to those branches as well. And I hope you enjoyed.